We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Now, Matt. All right, Matt says our discussion last week about adding a second SVS SB12 NSD to his current open concept room was helpful. Since he's looking to get both better uniformity and higher output, would it make sense to start by getting one ported sub that can handle his room size? Yes.
Yep. Yeah,
that's what makes sense. Yeah. You do not want to get two subs that cannot handle your room size, hoping that two wrongs will make a right. You need a sub that can handle your room size. It doesn't matter that it can only handle your room size like at the very top end of its range, especially if it's SVS. Doesn't matter as long as it can handle it. So you get the one that can handle your room size, that has the output that you want and the extension that you want. So then you get the second one for the uniformity. You're not getting the second one for increased output. You might get a little bit of increased output, but that's not why you're buying it. You're buying it for the better uniformity across the seats.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, he says that HSU VTF2 Mark V has an attractive price, but would it be the right choice? Can the HSU sub be set to their maximum volume without any risk of damage like the SVS subs can? I don't know that they can. Are you showing pictures? For some reason, I can't see you anymore.
No, I'm not showing pictures of these ones. I would not, as much as I like the VTF2 Mark V, for an open concept great room, it is not the appropriate choice.
Is that what he's in here? Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
the VTF2 series, they have the option being variable tuning. That's what the VT stands for.
Right.
They can be ported or sealed, or plug one port and go into extended mode. But their maximum output is maybe a little bit more than like the PB1000 from SVS, but not as much as the PB2000 from SVS. Which is actually appropriate because the price is right there in the middle as well.
Right.
Once you factor in the shipping cost. So, that to me would not be the right choice here. When you're talking about the size of room that you have, you want something that has significantly more output. I understand, though, that maybe for whatever budget you're trying to hit, it might not really be possible. Unfortunately, that just might be the case. And I would urge anyone in that situation, I know it's very frustrating, but I would urge you to wait, save up, get the right product that will truly satisfy you. Otherwise, it's going to feel like a half measure.
Yeah, and the thing about subs, in particular, turn this off.
Whoa, hold on. Something's going on here.
Am I on? Can you hear me?
Okay, you're back. Yep.
All right, I can't remember which way the mute button goes on these headphones. Sorry.
Jeez.
I muted myself because I had to sneeze. I'm sorry. All right. Hey, that's a perfectly valid reason to mute myself.
It is.
All right. Yeah, and when a half measure for a subwoofer in particular is particularly irksome because you realize it at the most inopportune times. You're sitting there, you're enjoying yourself, you're having a great time, and then your sub makes some weird noise during, the submarine scene in Finding Nemo, or in Master Commander, or in anyone doing anything in one of the Transformer movies. It's just you realize really quick, you're like, oh, that means my sub's not handling it. Or it starts, there's port noise, or it's distorting, or there's something. You realize it, and you hear it, and you're like, I wonder if I buy another one of these things, if that'll make it better. And the answer to the question is it will not. It will not make it better. It will just do the same thing, and there you'll be.
Yeah, as to how well protected HSU subs are, they do have a passive filter, like it basically just, what would that be, inductor or capacitor or something like that. Anyway, just a passive filter on the upper end there. So they have some protection, but it's technically still possible to kind of burn them up, theoretically. So basically, you're going to hear it long before it damages itself, which will hopefully give you enough time to turn the volume down. So they're not quite as well protected as SVS's, which is like a digital filter, which is, at some point, SVS basically turns it into a brick wall and just says, nope, no further. So the HSU isn't quite that well protected, but it's not completely unprotected either. So as long as you're anything close to reasonable, you should never blow up an HSU sub, but I can't say it's entirely impossible. So
Right. So he basically just wants the best balance of price and output capability, along with no fear of damaging his new sub.
yeah.
What would we recommend? Well, if you buy a sub that is appropriate for your room size, you don't have to worry about the damage.
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't make any difference which manufacturer you go with. Doesn't make any difference which what kind of protections they have on there.
Hmm.
It just, as long as you're playing it within its, stated capabilities, you are not going to have a problem.
Yeah.
So what you really need is just to to just do the first two. You need price and output capability, or price and performance. Once you find something that's the right price and has the appropriate performance, it
Hmm.
doesn't make any difference if you're getting it from SVS, HSU, Power Sound Audio, Outlaw Audio, Klipsch. I mean,
Yeah. Rhythmic. Yep.
the list goes on.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter. You just have to get the appropriate sub for your room size.
Yeah.
So you figure out what your room size is, which I think, if I remember correctly, is somewhere between massive and really massive. And then you find a sub that can play that. And many manufacturers, perhaps not Klipsch, but many manufacturers will have something that plays loud enough and can fill up that space.
Yeah.
The question is, can you afford it?
Right.
So when you're going for high output and low price, generally speaking, HSU, I think, is the way to go. SVS, in your lower price point and high output, for medium to small, medium, and some largish size rooms, SVS is the best price point. And then once you get into your larger rooms, HSU is your best price point. And then once you get into your really high output, then you're looking at Power Sound Audio or Rhythmic.
Yeah, that's generally true. Like I would probably recommend, since price is a concern here, I think about the best deal going right now is HSU's VTF3 Mark V. Now that's using the same driver and the same amp as their 15H model, their flagship. But
Yeah.
it's an ever so slightly smaller box. You're really not giving up very much. Now they're doing a holiday sale as well, so they do charge shipping. That's extra, but you add the shipping onto their sale price, $850 to your door. So $850.
That's pretty good, dude.
Is the VTF3 Mark V. That is, you're talking, if you're comparing it to SVS subs, that would be like a Plus series. That would be like a PB12 Plus model. It's that kind of output level that you're getting. So for a great room, that, I mean, that should be, in terms of what you're getting for the price, really can't be beat. So $850 to your door, pretty good.
All right, he says he's using the older Onkyo receiver that only has Audyssey 2 EQ, and that, of course, does not EQ the subwoofer at all, and it actually made his Ascend Acoustics Sierra 1 speakers sound worse than just having no room correction at all. So he's looking to upgrade. Here, his friend set up using MultEQ XT32 and found that pretty impressive. So he'd like to get that level of room correction if possible.
Okay.
Once again, though, he doesn't want to overspend, but he does want to be somewhat future-proof with Atmos and HDR support. Now, can we just talk about this from the let's take it back before we start with the recommendations, which I know it's not that hard these days, thankfully, to find good Audyssey at good price points. It used to be like the high-end Audyssey, it was only in the flagship models, so you're looking at spending $2,000-$3,000, and then I had a real hard time with that. Nowadays, I mean, I got mine, and with the X4000, that was like $1,000 or less, I think, or 1,200, something like that, and that was like 2 years ago. So now we can get them even cheaper on some products, but 2EQ kind of sucks. Let's not be around the book. Okay,
I
2EQ
agree, it's probably better left off. I mean, what I might use 2EQ for is run it and let it set your distances and speaker levels, and then turn it off.
yeah. So 2EQ for me, now I don't know, I have any actual proof of this, but in my mind, 2EQ is what happened when Onkyo said, "This is the processor we're going to put in here. What can you give us?" And they were like, "Are you guys really serious right now? Is this really all?" It's like, are you kidding me? You can't spend an extra 5 cents and get something decent in this thing? And they're like, "Nope, that's what you get." I'm like, okay, well, 2EQ is what we can do, and it's maybe better than nothing. So, but the reality of the situation here, and without really knowing what's going on exactly in this room and how much room treatment and stuff he has, the reality here is that it is very, very possible, if you get MultEQ XT32 with sub EQ and the whole 9 yards, you're going to go at the very end, it makes my speakers sound worse. And if it is possible.
It's
and
possible.
if that's the case, the likelihood is that the 2EQ is not the issue. Or the receiver or the room correction is not the issue. It's the room. So it's very important that at the very first step before we start looking at buying a new receiver for room correction,
Hmm.
that we look at our room and make sure our room is ready for room correction. Because if it's not ready for room correction, all the room correction in the world is not going to help. The better your room is, the better Odyssey will work.
Yeah, that's true.
2EQ, on the other hand, is gonna it sucks. So
Yeah, I mean, I just want to. My counterpoint to that is it is also entirely possible that MultEQ XT32 will sound better than what you got with 2EQ. That is
oh, I think it
also very
will for
possible.
sure.
Yeah,
But I just wanna, before we get into this, let's make sure that we
sure.
we, we
Yeah,
acknowledge that it is not a panacea. You can't just take
right.
Odyssey and put it in a hardwood floors, glass all the way around, vaulted ceiling,
Yeah,
you know, 9 foot by 9 foot by 9 foot box, and think it's going to sound fantastic. It's just not gonna happen. So look around your room, make sure your room is in as good a shape as you can, so that when you get your new receiver, which you certainly need if you have 2EQ, I'm surprised this Onkyo hasn't caught on fire yet, by the way, but get once you so that when you get this in here, it's going to sound as good as it possibly can. So that being said, he wants to future proof. He wants all that. So we're going to be looking at Denons and Marantzes. They
Hmm.
are pretty much the only game. Does anybody else run Odyssey anymore? Is
Nope,
it just them? It's just them, right?
just them for Odyssey. That's right.
Wow, I just kind of feel bad about that. Okay. Well, hopefully, somebody will come out something that. I mean, the only other game in town that I think is any good is Dirac,
Yeah.
and
Well,
the
maybe
one.
Anthem Arc isn't too bad. Arc is pretty
Oh, I'm
good.
sure it's fantastic, but with the price point, I'm
Yeah.
never going to hear it. So, what do we got for the Denons?
Yeah, so least expensive would be the AVR X3300W. That gets you MultEQ XT32. It's $700 over at Accessories for Less right now, so not too bad. That is completely future-proof in terms of having HDMI 2.0A ports and HDCP 2.2 copy protection. It does support Atmos and DTS-X, but only up to a maximum of 7 speakers. So the maximum Atmos setup you could do with that model is 5.2.2. That's as far as you could go with that. Now, interestingly, Marantz's SR6010, which is a year older model now, but that one is down at $700 as well. And that one lets you go to 9 speakers. It has 7 amps built in, but you can expand it with an external 2-channel amplifier to get you to a 5.2.4 or a 7.2.2 system. So if Atmos is a consideration, I strongly recommend going for something that can do a minimum of 9 speakers. To me, I think it's kind of necessary to really get the full experience and really feel like you have a hemisphere of sound, a dome of sound all around you. So those are the 2 least expensive. Now, basically everything that could do 11 speakers if you wanted it to is $1,000. All right. You've got the year-old SR7010 from Marantz. That was the flagship from last year. That's the receiver that I have. That's $1,000 at Accessories for Less. Pretty
Dang,
darn
dude,
nice.
that's cheap.
And then you have the newest model. So you have the SR6011, also $1,000. Basically the same feature set, except that the newest models can use the Audyssey app, which is a $30 add-on, which still hasn't released yet, but that's supposed to let you manually change the target curve. And then there's the Denon X4300H, also $1,000. And the nice features of the Denon that are included that are not included in either of those Marantzes that I mentioned is it has HEOS built in if you're interested in whole house audio, and the X4300 can be upgraded to Oro 3D if you want to.
Ooh.
It's a $200 upgrade, but at least it has the option. There are, of course, the flagship models above that, the X6200, X6300 from Denon, and the SR7011 from Marantz. But honestly, there isn't really much reason to go for any of those models because all of these $1,000 models have all the features that you could really want. So
Right.
you're talking a $700 minimum, $1,000 maximum. That's maybe over. I think he was trying to go for maybe like $500 if he could, but if you can go an extra 200, you can get something. You can get the SR6010 that can do 9 speakers if you want to for $700. That's pretty nice.
Right. If you get some weird sounds through your speakers too, you can
There you go, yeah.
send it in and
Maybe get a
yourself a
6011.
6011.
Maybe.
That's right. Just get home in the box and say, it sounds crackly. Give me a 6011. I don't think they'll do that. Lastly, he says he'll probably have more use for HDR support than Atmos with exactly as needed in terms of HDMI input and output specs in order to make sure that he'll be able to ready for both HDR10 and Dolby Vision. Well, you need HDMI 2.0 and HDCP 2.2.
Yeah, HDMI 2.0A, in fact, for that
A,
HDR10 support. Any of these Marantz and Denon models that we just mentioned, every single HDMI port, input and output, every single one has those specs. So you are as future-proof as you can be. Dolby Vision doesn't require any special HDMI spec. Dolby Vision could, in fact, work with HDMI 1.4. It doesn't need anything special. So, yeah, you're good to go.
All right. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.